Technical documentation makes you write the same thing twice instead of once. When choosing between writing code and writing documentation, your team will always choose code writing. Lean practices mean that what you write is not meant to be stored away. Do not write documentation. Hello everyone, I'm Andrey Putin, and today I have prepared a video about what documentation is and why it is needed. In conclusion, I will give you 3 simple pieces of advice. There are still managers who believe that technical documentation is needed. We even had a funny case with a Chinese company that asked us for documentation and we wrote it for them multiple times. That only delayed the launch of the product for many months, and then their CEO changed. After that, no one took responsibility for implementing new business processes. 6 months of work was tossed into the rubbish. Why? Because since everyone around the globe has been patient enough to watch an even more pointless situation happening in the world today, let's think about why do we need documentation. Today I would like to present my arguments as to why technical documentation is useless. Let me just say that I'm not talking about user documentation nor about documentation for technical support operators. Usually, this is written by technical support specialists for their own use. I would like to talk about technical documentation written for software solutions. The first and most obvious question is who will read it. If it's meant to be read by someone who understands the software, then it's not clear why this person would need a document that describes the code, when it would be easier and more logical to just look at the code itself. The code is up to date and the document may be obsolete. The code is understandable, but there might be missing something in the documentation or something in there may be expressed unclearly. I mean, I sometimes read my own text messages to my wife and I think, who the hell wrote this? If this document is meant to be read by someone who does not understand the software, then this person won't need it anyways. It won't be of any help, as the person won't figure out how to fix or change anything. Therefore, the quality of such documentation will always be low, because we put effort only in what is needed and what will be used. For a manager, this can cause a false sense of control, because you would think that you have technical documentation. If something fails, the frustration caused by this pointless documentation will be the least of your worries, as it will turn out that you're not ready for such failures. You were convinced that you had documentation and that everything was under control, and at some point, your teams have spent some much-needed time studying it. Secondly, who would write such documentation? If you want developers to write it, then how will you verify its authenticity? I have been noticing the same trend for a while now. When choosing between writing code and writing documentation, the team always chooses code writing. Thirdly, let's look at lean practices and self-documentation. Lean practices mean that what you write is not meant to be stored away. Lean practices are at their best use when everything is clear and without documentation. If you have server configurations described in configuration files that then deploy those servers, you have a documented description of the infrastructure. In software engineering, this notion is called server as a code. If you have interfaces to programs written in a way so that the code collects documentation, for example using Postman or an ESB, then your code and your documentation are the same. If the integration points with your service are obvious, then the whole IT solution can be described with very simple schemes. However, if the documentation exists separately from the code, then it will take a person who will write it and another person who will test it. After all, how will you know that what is written is actually true? The cost-effectiveness of such innovations is not clear. After all, when fixing an error, it's easier for a specialist to read the code than the document describing this code. In other words, technical documentation makes you write the same thing twice instead of once. Considering the current speed of changes in software development, it's not clear at all what this is all needed for. Fourthly, it doesn't make sense documenting systems that initially have development guidelines. So, if your solution is based, for example, on Liferay or Magento, then in theory, the developer should have followed guidelines. A specialist who has those guidelines will be able to resolve any issue. It often happens that developers do not read development guidelines before coding something. It's almost certain the documentation written by these teams will be of very poor quality. In this case, the only point of having documentation is to keep developers as far away as possible from writing the code. Now, let's take a look at those tips I promised. First of all, discard all technical documentation and replace it with a simple scheme describing in an abstract form the responsibility areas of each service and the entities that are being passed between systems. Don't use any technical terms in these systems. This won't be relevant anyways. We are here to make a document that can be trusted. Ideally, and according to DDD, it should be a map of business functions of your systems, which will be equally clear to both business and developers. This map, which we call a service map, can serve to audit security or to spot which service is overloaded, and it can even help change business processes. In this case, it makes absolutely no sense to document any end service. It should be modified and corrected by developers only, for whom the documentation will be useless because they will have the code. My second piece of advice is to always use the self-documentation principle, wherever it is possible. Along with your service code, you should also have all artifacts and instructions to deploy the service. It is easy to check. Ask the developers how quickly they can deploy the code on a new server or on a computer with the same infrastructure as, for example, on the test stand. If the answer is in days and not minutes or hours, you have problems, not only with documentation, but also with development quality. This is described in more details both in the book Accelerate and in the State of DevOps reports. Third tip, let technical support, who you should always invite to the demo presentations, be responsible for writing non-technical documentation for users. The customer support team communicates with users and answers all their questions. Usually, help desk specialists work around the clock in shifts, so the documentation must be transferable from one shift to another. That means that documentation quality will initially be audited and revised by those who will work with it. That's it. Thank you all. Goodbye.